Hello and welcome to episode 7 of TVC's show called In Your Ward. In this show, me, Thomas Stockting, takes you through each ward here in the municipality of Clarence-Rockland, speaking to its respective councillor. As I said, we're episode 7, so keeping on the chronological order here, we are with Councillor for Ward 7, Mr. Michel Levert. How are you, Michel?
Very good, and thanks for inviting me, and welcome to the best ward.
So you dragged us out to Hammond today, haven't you?
Yes, especially at the Hammond Golf Club.
Yes.
So I thought it was a good place to come
Yeah,
and
we'll
chat.
Absolutely. We'll touch a little bit more on the location itself and the reason we're here a little bit later. But first of all, Ward 7, we're in Hammond. How far does Ward 7 stretch for those of us that's a little ignorant?
Yeah, right up to Nation, and right up to the ward, Andre's ward, which would be Clarence Creek, almost to Vinept Road, and then down to the Ottawa the line there on Canaan Road. So it's a big ward.
Encompasses a big area, yeah. Do you live within the ward specifically yourself?
Oh, yes, of course. I live in Hammond, right in the not in the village, just outskirts. Yeah.
You lived here your whole life, do you mind me asking?
No. I've been here for 38 years. I was born in what they call French Hill, which is south of Cumberland. Of course, born at the Montfort Hospital, like everybody else around here. And it's been great. I've been working in this municipality for since 1991. So working at home is just great. You know, it'll be 40 years married, and it's funny we're sitting here because we were the first wedding here 40 years ago.
No way.
Yes.
What, here?
Yeah. Well, that's not what it looked like. It actually was an old pig house turned into a hall. That's what Mr. Leonard back then put together, and we were one of the first weddings here. I think the first wedding, actually. And it was so many people, and he thought he was going to run out of beer. It was so funny. Anyway, that's enough for that. But that's 40 years ago already.
So was it 40 years this year?
Yes.
Congratulations, first of all. And I love that, the idea of the pig house converted. I feel like that is actually an aesthetic that a lot of people thrive for these days.
Yeah.
That barn, you get some fairy lights up and you get that rural aesthetic, and had it au naturel 40 years ago. Michel, touching on your time as, because we're speaking today because you're a local councillor, so how long have you been on council for? When did you first run?
Well, 2014 actually. This is my second term. Of course, we're coming close to the end of this term, but it's been just wonderful, close to people. Not always easy, but something that, you know, I was looking forward to when I first got in the race in 2014. It was a tough race, but we did manage it, and we got in, and that was the important thing. We wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference in my ward. Of course, you know, when you're going from house to house, when you're campaigning, main thing is infrastructures all the time. If you ask, well, mainly the councillors, that's what it is, the roads. And the rural roads especially, because, you know, we've got still about 100 kilometers of rural roads still in our great Clarence-Rockland city. So something to, you know, to look forward, cleaning up all those roads and fixing them up, it's not easy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The budget for the whole city for the roads is about $2 million a year, which is not that much, you know. But we're going ahead with that 10-year plan. Not always respected, but you know, we've got emergencies most of the time. We've got to dig into that that sum of money. We do have some reserves, but you know, things are all right. I'm happy with things are going. The main project for me this time is Gagne Road, which is not far from here. It's been neglected for all these years. It's on the 10-year plan, but we're going ahead this year, starting to make all the plans and going ahead. We've got a budget for it, so hopefully by the end of this term, that road will be done, and I'll be very happy for that. So will all the taxpayers.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And we touched on this actually in the previous episode with Councillor Christian Simard when we're on Chemin du Lac and talking about that. And as you say, this only $2 million budget, very, very constrictive when you look at Chemin du Lac, which is costing 1.1 million in itself. You mentioned there about running because you wanted to do your part for your community. I want to expand on that a little bit more. So what was the ambition? What led you to run in 2014? Was there a specific moment where you're like, I need to help out, or was it more a slow roll and a building over time?
Well, it was more a slow roll. I've owned a business here for 17 years, so I know the people from Hammond and from this ward, Hammond, Cheney, and a lot of people approach me, Mike, I think you can make a difference, so why don't you come ahead and give it a try? And I did, and like I say, it wasn't easy. You got to have a good ear and listen to people, and remember what they tell you, because they will remember. If you don't, they will for sure. But no, I like helping people, and I've always been involved, whether it be with the Optimist Club, the Knights of Columbus, the church, the choir, which, by the way, we might not even come back to singing, but I've been really close to the community, so people know me, and they've known me for a long time for doing stuff around the ward.
And looking, because you said this is your second term, I mean, every term has its own specific challenges. Obviously, 2014's council had their own challenges, which just some of your colleagues have mentioned in previous episodes already. And this particular term has had its own challenges it's had to face that were completely unpredictable if you just consider the last 12 months. How do you find both of them? How has the first term been against the second term for you?
Well, of course, in the first term, of course, we worked in our community, but as you remember, we had the floods, and that was really tough on the community. Here we didn't get any flood per se, but a lot of people from here were involved in the flood, in helping out. And here, like I said, the infrastructure all the time. We do have some flooding from Cobb's Lake, what's called Cobb's Lake. That's in Ward 8, but it still touches my ward. And people get frustrated with stuff like that, you know. How come you guys didn't prevent that? But, you know, a lot of stuff are not preventable. And you know, what I think is very important that this council has done is educating people of how this council is working and how the finances are working.
Like an increased transparency.
Yes, of course. Well, I think, well, the last 2 terms anyway, this council has been very transparent. We have a very transparent mayor, and I think I've done my share of being transparent too. And like, if it's no, you don't say maybe or yes, we'll get it done. It's no. That's it. We can't get that done this year. And people are, you know, if you're straightforward, I think people would understand better. And like I say, educating the taxpayers of where your money going. You know, I'm paying $5,000 of tax. Okay, but listen, you're going. A good part of that is going to Prescott Russell. For what? Your ambulance? Well, yeah, but you know, the only service I get is garbage. No, you don't. You get more than that, which you're not using. But if you ever do need it, you'll be using it.
It's a little bit like insurance. You pay for it because you hope you don't need it, but if you do need it, it's there. Absolutely. You mentioned there as well, you own a local business that has been 17 years, did you say?
Yeah.
What is it you do?
Well, it was a restaurant business. Domaine Chez Filias, it was called back then. It's changed there because I sold it 8 years ago. Okay. It's unfortunately it's been closed now, and I guess COVID's to blame, a big part of it, which was the Station 4 Saisons. But I've met so many nice people, made friends, and still have friends from the business. So it was a catering business. We had the first professional French summer theater in Ontario. That was the first one that was put in together, and we had summer camp for kids. I mean, we've done about everything, weddings and a lot of ventures, and I guess that's why we got to know all these people too.
Well, I was going to say, like that on top of your council experience, how do you think your professional experience and this meeting involvement in the community has affected you as a councillor and as a decision maker?
Oh, of course, it's affected me. Well, first of all, you know, with the family, because you're gone a lot of time. But I'm very fortunate when we go to conferences, whether it be Toronto or we've been to conferences up the east too, and my wife is always there with me. But it's now that I have grandchildren, my kids are gone. Well, I mean, it's a lot easier to put all this together. You know, if you had kids at home, it'd be a lot different. you know. Like I see Don Bouchard going there, so I say, oh my God, Don, good luck.
My favourite part of Don is seeing him rock up in the minivan, and I do think he does rock it as well. Well, Michelle, we're going to take a quick break, and we're actually going to pop out into the cold, because it wouldn't be an In the Wards episode without taking the councillor out into the cold. I know we got away with it here, but we're going to go off and discuss a little bit of a topical issue. So you stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a minute. Hello and welcome back to the second part of episode 7 here of In Your Ward. As you saw in the first half, we delved a little bit into the personal and professional life of Councillor Michel Levert. And as he mentioned, we're in Hammond, which is in Ward 7, his ward, and we're specifically at the Hammond golf course today. So Michelle, one of the things we're really chatting about in this second half are the economical repercussions, of COVID-19 on small businesses. So first of all, I just wanted to ask your opinion, because especially wards like this, a little bit more rural, it's fundamentally constructed on these small locally owned businesses. How do you reckon the last 12 months has affected them?
Well, actually, it's been quite rough, I think, since we had 2 lockdowns during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what people have been looking at is, you know, the loss of revenue, number one. And number 2 is those who are paying rent, the utilities, and the employees, of course, losing the employees because people have to work. A lot of them, it's fine that they had some revenue from the government, but then, and then all the, you know, the debt they are facing right now. But, you know, after these lockdowns, people have found alternative ways of dealing with people. And that's what I like about, you know, the rural part. People are, that's the thing about knowing your neighbor. You know, they trust you, and business has been doing pretty good. I think, I would say about, you know, 45% of the business here have been currently, they haven't anticipated major risk. Like the people in town, or like if you take a look, for example, at Toronto, I mean, but we did lose some businesses. Absolutely. For sure. But even in the restaurants, you know, even here at the golf club, they've been open for takeout, and the brewery. So you grab a beer and grab a, you know, a poutine on the way out, and that's perfect. I think people have been innovative in the ways to entertain themselves, because staying home is not, you know, is not that fun.
No, not at all. And like, as you say, one of the great things to see is the imagination that business owners and people have shown. In a survey conducted by the United Counties of Prescott-Russell last year, in July, it was sort of saying that 47% of business owners are in a difficult or critical situation. Though that had decreased from the start of the pandemic, I think, as people were getting used to things a little bit more. Do you think now, if a survey was done now, we'd see a similar number? Do you think it would have decreased? How do you think the second lockdown over the winter period would have affected these local businesses? Have you heard anything from any business owners?
Well, for sure they've been affected, but I think, you know, how should we say, even about 30% of the businesses are anticipating of hiring again and going back, and 64% of the businesses here have been, they haven't laid off any people, employees, they haven't hired, so they're still statu quo. So I think we're doing pretty good here, well, mostly in Prescott-Russell. But you know, Prescott-Russell economic recovery plan has been out this January. Whether it's going to be followed, I know at the end of March there's some funds will be available there, and I hope they stick with that. So it'll be I'm anxious to see what's going to happen, you know, in the next few months, and I think with the vaccine coming, this will actually change a lot of stuff. You know, I'm not going to be we don't have a crystal ball, but I think by next Thanksgiving we'll be seeing our families together again.
And not to ask you to look at the crystal ball, we obviously don't have, but one of the biggest issues that people are sort of facing with businesses now is consumer confidence, right? It's getting people back out spending money when purse strings have felt a little bit tight, as well as the fact that there are sanitary measures, health measures, COVID fear. So what do you think, what steps can be taken to try and give consumers confidence to turn up and utilize these businesses again?
Well, I think most of the people in my ward anyway, you know, I've never lost confidence in our businesses. Because, you know, right now, we have, like, for say, Rona here in my ward, but also in Rockland and other Bytown. They've been booming. Their business has been boomed, and they've had record years because people are home renovating, doing stuff all around. So I think, you know, we've been doing pretty good here in Clarence-Rockland. You know, I'm proud of all the people. They've put their hands together and put themselves not at risk, but you know, staying here, staying alive, and trying to make a difference. And I know you've seen it on Facebook. Even the restaurants giving away food and trying to help people, and even we haven't seen big gatherings here, and I don't think we'll see it. People have been respectful in all this COVID thing.
Yeah, and as the weather warms as well, businesses sort of have this new catchment of people to bring in because, there are the snowbirds that head down south, obviously, during the winter months. It's been a little bit more difficult with the lack of international travel, but the summer months especially brings in that fresh new economic source, which is fundamentally tourism, right? So one of the reasons we're even here today is to discuss that a little bit about a specific case, which we will get onto in just a second. But in terms of the tourism goals for Clarence-Rockland as a municipality, as well as the wider United Counties of Prescott-Russell, how high up is tourism as one of the goals to try and boost this economic recovery plan?
Yeah, well, I mean, our main jewel here, of course, in Clarence-Rockland is the river, the Ottawa River, the park there. And last summer, of course, a lot of people were boating and the docks were open. And here in my ward, Larose Forest, for sure, I mean, people have been skiing there. Of course, the restaurant wasn't open. The restaurants were open. They couldn't stop for a coffee or whatever, but they've been active in the ward. So that's tourism. It's not bringing big bucks, but it's still going on, you know. And same thing we have another small forest there on Laving Road, and that's been busy. I've been there a few times with my grandchildren. It's just an amazing park, and I think things are in the ward here have been really good. I don't think we've snowmobiling. After we settle the Prescott-Russell Trail with Via, after we've settled the lease, so snowmobile started again. So, but like I say, there was no restaurants to stop or anything, so it doesn't draw a lot of people, especially snowmobilers. They need places to fuel, to eat.
Absolutely.
You know, but no, we've been doing all right. I'm pretty sure that we'll get out of here, and we've learned a lot of stuff.
Now, as you say, one of my favourite activities back in the UK is going hiking with my father. And one of the best bits and the thing that really it catches him to go places and to go hiking is to be able to park up at a pub, do a loop of a hike and then end at the pub and have a meal and have a local pint of beer or something of the sort. So as you say, these kind of opening these businesses up will be vitally important. The reason why we're specifically at Hammond today is the creation, the project they've got ongoing is very similar to something we've seen recently announced in Larose Forest about sustainable accommodation within more natural areas. So is this kind of eco-tourism something that's a high priority for Clarence-Rockland and the United Counties?
Well, I think they're very favorable to this type of business and the eco center. I mean, if we can just go back when winter started, Len here was you know, the restaurant was open back then, and he's got trails here. So a lot of times you've seen 100 people here just on the trails and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. So now I think altogether we've been really fortunate here. Fortunate in the country and with Larose Forest and everything around here that people are eco-friendly to almost, you know, all the time.
And touching a little bit on La Rose Forest before we bring our focus back to Hammond here, there's obviously been some worries, especially in Alfred Plantagenet. There's been some people raising concern about clear cutting of forests and of wood. Has there been any opposition voiced to council about these creations inside forests, which obviously does entail clearing some spaces?
Well,
and has there been work done between the council and local conservation authorities to ensure that it's done in an environmentally friendly way?
of course, and that's when, like I said before, education comes in effect. La Rose Forest was planted years ago, and a lot of it was to harvest, and now we had some type of epidemic. I don't know what it was exactly, so we had to harvest instead of losing it. But you know, it was done with Prescott and Russell because they own the forest, they manage the forest, and also with the South Nation. So everything was made so it was sustainable for the forest. You know.
Well, I won't ask you to answer that question specifically about the project ongoing here. The best person to ask is, upon your recommendation, is actually one of the co-owners, construction lead minds behind this project. I'm going to call Erin over if you want to come and have a little chat with us. So Erin is one of the co-owners here at Hammond Golf Course and is also pretty much the mastermind and construction behind this upcoming project. Erin, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Perfect. So one of the reasons we want you on today and to have a little bit of a chat is about this this almost like eco lodge village you've got created that's actually going to be one of the hills behind me. Am I correct in saying?
Yep. Just at the top of this ridge, there's about 50 acres that we have started developing on the premise of being an ecologically sustainable resort. We've used that model and we've gone ahead and we've formed a bunch of tiny homes, tiny cottages, so they're off the grid, completely off the grid with solar, water reclamation. We've built them in such a way that they are smaller than conventional houses, so they use less lumber, there's a lot less offcuts, and we're trying to get people to think differently about how they live and where they live and what's important.
And what was the inspiration behind this project?
Well, myself and my partner Brad, we have many kids, 7 between us, and we realized that we want our kids to grow up and be really proud about what we're doing. So we figured we had one chance to really produce a legacy project. We both live, he lives in Rockland, I live down the street here, and we realized it's an opportunity for us to do something really great with a friend and partner in land of the golf course and develop 50 acres that up until now have just kind of sat there vacant, really not doing anything.
So those 50 acres there, did they have trees upon them? Or just sort of continuing the conversation I was having with Michelle about what's happening in La Rose Forest, was there any cutting and felling that had to occur, and were any environmental organisations consulted on this project?
Yeah, we've consulted all through the city, the South Nation. We hired a forestry consultant that kind of came up and identified the trees that we could fell because they were dead. We've also made a commitment that every tree that's greater than 1.5 inches in diameter, every tree we have to cut for this project, we're going to replant. We've partnered with a couple of planting companies, charities across the world, where we're contributing some of our gross revenues to ensure that not only are we replanting trees in our neighborhood, but we're trying to make that process be better around the world as well.
And I mean, we stood here together in March 2021, still a bit of snow on the ground and stuff. When is this project properly starting construction, and when do you plan to try and have some of these, this village, this resort, as you were saying, up and running?
So we're really excited. We will be launching our indoor sales center, which we believe is the first of its kind. That'll be launching March 27th, will be our grand opening. From there, we segue to building outside. We have literally 1 month to do all of our footings. There's some endangered species that we have to be really cautious about in terms of construction. So we have a month to lay all our footings down, and then we're going to be rocking and rolling with the anticipation of early summer having our first 5 or 6 units ready for rent.
Fantastic. And this kind of ecotourism, is this something that you see as a big goal for the area? As Michelle was saying, there's sort of been a veer towards it. Is that the kind of trend you've caught onto then?
Yeah, I think it really makes sense. We are in the country, but we're only 15 minutes from Orleans, Colorado. People with COVID have kind of changed our mindsets about what's important and getting on planes or not. We think we can really move ahead with the staycation model, and in particular with the golf course here and the brewery, and we have all these great elements that we can kind of loop in, and that's what we think really makes it a resort. We're partnering with some snowmobile companies to do some tours for us and some fishing companies to fish on the Ottawa River. The idea being that the grand vision being that it's be similar to booking your vacation in Mexico, except you get to just drive in your car from Montreal. You're here in 2 hours, and you have all the amenities that you would have getting on a plane and risking everything to go down to Mexico for a week.
So when this is all up and running, is it just a summer project, or are we talking some winter stays as well?
These units will be fully winterized, so the anticipation is that you can come up, cross-country ski from here right up to your unit, stay in. We're going to be running some shuttles back and forth, so if people want to have a few too many beverages, we'll make sure we get them home safe. But absolutely, the winter in our part of Ontario is fantastic. We want people to be outside. Again, we've partnered with a forestry consultant. She's going to be doing some walking trails for us so we can identify endangered species, different types of trees. We're looking into possibly a sugar shack just to explore it with our guests so they understand what it is and maybe just kind of inform people more about it. Long term, we've discussed with a couple of people about putting a butterfly pavilion up, so we have a very ambitious plan. But the community's been really behind us. The city council, the city people, the planners, the MPs, everyone that we've reached out to has been so supportive of this idea.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to hear. Michel, I take it this is the kind of project that you are absolutely loving having in your own ward here.
Absolutely. Innovation, that's what we need, and that's what people are looking for. And I thank this group is just going ahead with this project. It just, when they first approached me, I thought it was, my God, that's a good project. So thank you very much.
As you were saying about the start, the innovation and the inspiration that people have utilised during this pandemic is sort of one of the biggest shining lights. And so, Erin, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us. Michel, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today as well to discuss some of the things going on in your ward. Best of luck with the project, Erin. Michel, we will be speaking again in a few weeks' time. And I'll let you get in because it is a little bit chilly out here and you are wearing nothing but shorts. How terribly Canadian of you. So thank you very much for catching this episode. Join us next week where we'll be heading to Bourget to speak to the Councillor for Ward 8, Madame Diane Chouanière. That one will be in French. Thanks for watching.